over the weekend and last week, we dove into the Hall of Fame and being inducted into the Hall of Fame for baseball. And I had a couple questions that I didn't ask because I felt like they were dumb questions or stupid questions. But after talking with you over the weekend, you were like, no.
No such thing as a stupid question that you should know as being a teacher yourself.
So I'm just going to go ahead and ask them. So, in particular, I want to talk about Curt Schilling. Now, and I'm going to use him as an example because it seems that he is the most controversial, I guess, out of all the other players that are creeping up to still be eligible to be inducted. So, what is it then that is making the numbers increase? Like, what exactly, if it's not just based on your ability or how well you did, your success on the field, what is it that's making the numbers go up over time?
Well, what we're seeing is people the writers, they want to make Curt Schilling sort of suffer for his political views. Some people are coming around to the idea of him being a Hall of Famer, but there are several factors that go into that, and it has to do sort of with the same reason why sports writers, the baseball writers, are coming around to voting some of the steroid guys in the Hall of Fame, because they're coming around on the idea a little bit, but they're making them wait, like the 9-10 year wait, because they want them to suffer for what they did to the game, or for them not agreeing with their views or the things that they have said on social media.
Do you think that they're going to get inducted eventually?
I think Schilling gets in this year. I think Bonds and Clemens are a little bit less of a sure thing than Schilling, who, if you look at his rise over the last 4 years on the ballot, he's gone from 45% to 70% in those last 4 years. So he's right at that threshold of 75% that's needed, and I think he's going to push into it this year.
But I'm sorry, I almost feel like, what's the point? Like, if you're going to get in eventually, what's the point of making them wait? Because if, their views on the world, or if they're not, portraying themselves in a respectable way, or what you feel is a respectable way, and you're really just doing it to prolong their induction, if they get it eventually, what is the point? It's not like you're teaching anybody a lesson. These are grown men.
Yeah, but you got to remember, some of these sports writers are annoying. They are annoying. I mean, we watch SNY enough to know a certain person that I've named on Mets UpFront. I'll keep him nameless for this episode. But these guys never got to play in the big leagues. They never got to play in the big leagues. They always had dreams of playing, but they weren't good enough. So some of them, I'm not saying all of them, there's plenty of good sports writers out there, but there are some out there who have their own vengeances, who want to control. This is the only thing they can control. They can't control what they did on the field. They can't control anything else, but they can control this part of their lives. They can make everything revolve around them regarding this.
And they're just allowed to do that? Like, is it written in some kind of rule book or some kind of book to say that, like, you can withhold that honor based on something that they post on Twitter? Maybe, obviously not, with that exact wording, but, like, how I would think of it, with certain exceptions, like, obviously O.J. Simpson is not
a lot of it
baseball, but, with that kind of thing, you're not going to induct him into the Hall of Fame. But is it written that the things that you do off the field are going to then affect you getting inducted?
Well, Rule 5, I looked it up, of the Baseball Hall of Fame, qualification says, voting shall be based upon the player's record, playing ability, integrity, sportsmanship, character, and contributions to the team or teams on which the player played. So interpret that as you may.
Right. And that's the part that just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, and again,
I see that just related with baseball.
But there are certain people that feel that these guys, their political views, have a tie to it. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with what Schilling has said on Twitter or his views either.
And I don't think that's entirely political with the things he's putting out there, at least.
Some of the things he's putting out there are shouldn't be put on. And they're not opinion. They're just sort of being mean, but
it's discrimination.
It's discrimination, but I think Schilling's baseball accomplishments aren't laced by that. They shouldn't be laced by what he said on Twitter, what views he has. And they're wrong. They're wrong. Don't get me wrong. That there's a difference between having your opinion and being discriminatory, being racist, or whatever term it is. But it shouldn't take away from what the baseball writers are voting him on. Same reason why the writers didn't like Barry Bonds, and that's part of the reason. The steroids, the writers didn't like him. Barry Bonds again wasn't the nicest guy to the media, but at the same time, the guy hit the home run record. At the end, the steroids is one opinion, but if you're gonna vote on him just because you don't like him, it's not what your Hall of Fame vote is for.
No, and all of it to me is like, it's interesting because as someone that like loves sports but also loves like reality TV, in my opinion, this is almost like a sports male version of just like the pettiness that you see on certain trash reality TV shows. It's like, when I say that, I'm really relating it in terms of having even the chance, because you said you think Curt Schilling's getting in this year. But what if he doesn't? You look back on it and you say the guy's numbers increase, his votes, his percentages increase year by year, just to say like, psych?
Yeah, that's really what it is. I think that, again, we have all these committees now too that meet every so often, every few years, to induct guys like Harold Baines, who got into the Hall of Fame. But there should be no vengeance. If you want to have a vengeance over guys who use steroids, fine. If you want to continue to have a vengeance over guys like Shoeless Joe Jackson and the Black Sox, who took money for that 1919 World Series, that's one thing.
That's directly correlated to the game.
That's directly correlated to the game. But if you're going to take what Schilling did on the field, what Bonds and Clemens did on the field, especially in times where steroids were very prevalent. Now, the argument could be made, well, if you're going to vote these two guys in, these three guys in, why doesn't Robinson Cano, when he's all up for the Hall of Fame, get in? Because it's a different circumstance where they played in an era where at least 50% of the guys were taking some sort of steroids, and the Players Union was protecting it so much that they had pretty much forced MLB to implement the weakest drug testing policies in any of the four major sports. Now, Cano, he's playing at a time where no one's using steroids anymore. Everyone's cracked down more on it. They're cracking down on things that aren't even steroids, things that you use to mask the steroids. So that's a difference. If you want to hold a vengeance on Cano for that, do it. But for those guys, you have to be a little more particular. It's just like everyone was bulked up. They just happened to already be Hall of Fame players, and that steroids just took it to a whole nother level.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just have to sit back and enjoy the show, like when we see the results. I mean, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to watch. And again, I couldn't name you all the X amount of voters who vote, but I will say, and I won't name names, but if you look at not Mr. Tibbs, 2Bs on Twitter, he gets some of the votes, the voters, they give him their ballots so he can post them on Twitter and keep track, sort of like poll projecting, like a presidential election. But I saw a couple of writers on there that their main job, like I said, isn't even writing about baseball anymore. It's one of them actually works at Stony Brook now.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
And you know who I'm talking about.
I know who you're talking about.
And I don't, I'm going to pull a little Carton here, because Carton did this with Dave Portnoy, who he was, which member of the Trump family he was seeing. He was giving hints. But I'm just going to say, he was a Mets beat writer. He got in a little bit of a feud with Omar Minaya a few years back. If you're a Mets fan and you're watching this, you know who it is. I was too young to read his writing. But I tell you now, he doesn't cover a beat for a baseball team, but he still has a vote. So I'm just gonna put that one out there.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like that shouldn't. Whatever. I'm done.
Not,
That's another conversation for
that's
another
another
day.
conversation, but that's really the point we're getting, where I think even the voting process for the Hall of Fame needs to be revamped.
Yes, I 100% agree.